It really doesn't stop, folks. It really does not stop. Welcome to the show. My name is Mark Farzetta. This is the Farzy Show, presented by our good friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. I guess the safest bet this offseason would be that if the Eagles had a historic collapse, that drama would ensue in the offseason. And boy, has it. It hasn't disappointed in that regard. It's disappointing that so much BS has come out after the season. But here you are yesterday doing the show on A.J. Brown and his interview with WIP and all that, and I'm like, all right, we put this. This will be like a character arc on a TV show where it's like, all right, everything's terrible. We don't have any answers. We get a couple of attempts at an answer to try to explain what the hell happened at the end of the Eagles season, and then A.J. Brown calls in a WIP, answers some questions about it, and then you just think, okay, now it's the combine. Now it's going to be the draft, free agency. Then gearing up, the Phillies will start, and then gearing up for the Eagles season. We'll have, I don't know, whatever's going to happen in the Sixers before the playoffs. Paul Hudrick, by the way, makes a wonderful return to the Farzy Show. Talk about all things Sixers and what the expectations are surrounding Joel Embiid. But we thought all this would happen, and then the rest of the season would play out. I really did think that A.J. Brown would be the pinnacle, the highest point of that character arc in the offseason for the Eagles. Turns out not so much. Now, that probably will be the most dramatic thing. However, this morning, actually right before I go to start the show here, this story is written by the Inquirer's Marcus Hayes. And here's the headline for you. For the people on the podcast, Eagles veterans. Nick Sirianni played favorites as Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown were treated, quote, different. Two sets of rules. If you were a star, you got away with murder. Speaking of dramatic, if you weren't, you got roasted by the coaches. Well, that's just great. Remember that conversation we were having about Jalen Hurts being coached hard and how Nick Sirianni coaches him hard and how Jalen Hurts likes being coached hard? Remember that? Well, apparently not. Apparently that's not the deal. So I go on to read the story. The first thing that is said here is first off, this is what's amazing about this. Actually, I'll save that for the kicker here. All right. So Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown supposedly are being treated different by the coaching staff. Marcus Hayes went up to a veteran, okay, in the Eagles locker room. So I'm reading the story. I'm like, well, when the hell did this happen? Because there hasn't been any locker room sessions. It doesn't initially, in the beginning of the story, it doesn't say, oh, per sources, right? It doesn't say that. And I'm like, so where is this story coming from? Is this speculation? What's going on? So I go on to read the story. And Marcus Hayes highlights a conversation he had with an Eagles veteran. And he said, quote, when asked if Brown's on-field conniptions and his 2-week media blackout were affecting the team, an accomplished veteran replied, well, I don't know about that, but I will say it doesn't help when they treat guys two different ways. Huh? And then this pops up. With that, the veteran nodded at Hurts' empty locker. So Marcus Hayes then followed up with, well, what about Brown? The veteran then replied by saying, yeah, I guess some guys can't do anything wrong. What the hell? What the hell? This is out. You would, for an entire fan base, this is, Marcus uses the word malpractice when describing the coaching staff, especially towards the end of the season, coaching malpractice, whether that be the change in coordinators and all that stuff, whatever. This is malpractice towards the fans. The Eagles had this, and it wasn't pretty, as we've covered many times, the 10-1 record. It wasn't pretty, but it was still 10-1. And they had this season, and even if they just get blown out the way they did against the 49ers, and even if they get beat up the way they did against the Cowboys, you should at least be a good enough team that has found enough ways to win at 10-1. You should at least still be a good enough football team to find a way to win against the Seattle Seahawks. You should find a way to win against the Giants, which miraculously they did. And then, maybe beat Jonathan Gannon and the Arizona Cardinals, especially with that field goal, the onside kick. And then, if you're going to lose to the Giants with all those blitzes, find a way to pick up those blitzes in a week and then go and play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and then, beat them. But no answers. No answers whatsoever. So it had this whole season where you should be able to find a way to win towards the end of the season the way you did to at least get to 10-1, and you could maybe at least secure the division, at least, with still the very real possibility of winning the number 1 seed in the NFC. But instead, all this drama had to play out with the Eagles. Favorites were being played now? Great. What happened to that hard coaching? What happened to, we're going to correct these mistakes because we're going to correct them because we're going to, coaches, I got confidence in my coaches, and my coaches are going to concentrate on correcting the mistakes because the coaches are so good and I know how to coach and everyone's coaching up the mistakes to not be mistakes anymore. What? What the hell happened to all that? What happened to all that coach speak? So it goes on. So I'm like, so when the hell did this happen? When did this conversation happen? This is hilarious. According to Marcus Hayes' story, the veteran told him, Marcus Hayes, after the Eagles lost that home game to the Cardinals on New Year's Eve, and he was asked to keep it straight, keep this off the record. I don't want anybody to know about this. So then, according to the story, the veteran, after all the, quote, discourse surrounding the Eagles' collapse mushroomed into an apocalyptic event, Marcus, brilliant writer, the veteran this weekend said that his assertion could be used, although without attribution. So anonymously. But a veteran, when contacted, another veteran not only supported the accusation, but also expanded. Good God, man. What the hell are they doing with our football team? Where's the leadership? This is going into the season. One of the reasons I had so much confidence that the Eagles were not going to have that Super Bowl hangover, where they were going to have that fatigue. And maybe that was the reason towards the end of the season, fatigue set in, which is not an excuse. Then be ready before the season. Get those guys in shape before the season. Don't try to play yourself into shape with not a lot of reps in training camp. The Eagles went to the Super Bowl a year ago after a training camp that was supposed to be Camp Cupcake. And then this year, before the season, dialed it back a bit. Well, I don't know what that means. I've been to the two-a-days with Andy Reid and Lehigh. I've been to the Chip Kelly training camp at NovaCare Complex. I've obviously been to Doug Peterson and the Nick Sirianni era as well. And it's just like, this keeps on scaling back. Like, where are we? If you scaled back from next to nothing, so what did you do? What was the lounge chairs, sipping pina coladas, straws and coconuts? Palm trees brought in? What the hell happened? So all this is going on towards the end of the season, and they have no idea how to correct it. And what really jumps out to me about this piece is that I go back to just forget for a second that Nick Sirianni doesn't call plays for the offense. Okay, I think we're all over that at this point. That's not what we're focusing on. That's not the biggest point to make. It's a point to make, but it's far from the biggest. If you don't call plays, then you got to be responsible for the attitude in that locker room. And I thought with the leadership after the Super Bowl last year, I thought with the leadership in the locker room alone, and Nick Sirianni's ability at the time to have this team pull focus would steer them in the right direction throughout the season. And any adversity that they would face, they would be able to overcome it. Epically wrong. We got A.J. Brown feeling like he has to explain himself for why he has tantrums. A.J. Brown having to not talk to the media for 2+ weeks about what was going on in his head. He didn't want to compound the negativity. Okay. All right. And then who I thought was supposed to be a leader on this team in A.J. Brown apparently doesn't get taken seriously by some guys because he gets the favorite label with the coaching staff. Look, I think it was Jimmy Johnson, the head coach of the Cowboys, that was asked about one player getting cut for showing up late. Emmitt Smith showing up the same time and not getting cut. And it's like, I thought all players were judged equally. And I think the line from Jimmy Johnson was, some players are more equal than others. And it's a great line because it really does tell how things go. And not just the NFL, but pretty much anyway. Oh, you're worth this to our company, to our franchise, whatever. Well, then guess what? You do have kind of special rules because you're going to make up for it by scoring, 18 touchdowns, whatever the case may be. It is a little bit different. But you should never have your locker room feel that much of a difference to the point where they're going to point it out to a media member. I kind of love this. They say, don't use it. No, keep it off the record. Don't use it. And then everything is set ablaze at the end of the season. And they're like, screw it, use it. Like, let's just add to the rest of the drama that has happened with this season. Oh, my goodness gracious. If you would have told me at 10-1, hey, here, check this out, okay? Hold on, come here. You're not going to believe it. Come here. Here's what's going to happen. The Eagles are 10-1, okay? They're going to get blown out against the 49ers. They're going to get blown out in Dallas against the Cowboys. They're not even going to get – they're not – forget about the number one seed. They're not getting the number one seed. They're not even going to win the division at 10-1. First team since the Jets in 87. That's always great to be in company with the Jets. In 87. To be 10-1 and like not even win your division. That's bonkers, man. You have that historical collapse. And then, you know what's going to happen? There's going to be an article questioning Jalen Hurts' leadership, which there was with Joe Santoliquito. Then there's going to be A.J. Brown. Well, is he hacked? Is he not hacked? Is he hacked? Is he not hacked? He's not hacked anymore, but he was? Okay. And now he's going to call into WIP and answer questions about that he wants to be here? That he loves playing in Philadelphia? Okay, great. And now coaches throughout the entire oh, man, I didn't even get into it. The end of the season press conference with Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni, and what is it you do here? What's your role with the team? Vic Fangio gets announced. The story breaks from Adam Schefter that Vic Fangio is going to be the Eagles defensive coordinator while the end of the season press conference is happening. In the process, they're going to change defensive play callers. Getting out of order here, I apologize. But, it shows how crazy it's been at the end of the season for the Philadelphia Eagles. And now, all this drama comes out after the season. Oh, playing favorites. We're going to correct mistakes during the season. Well, how do you do that if you're not holding other players accountable the way you hold the team accountable? This is one of the biggest things that's concerning to me. Because I thought one of the most steadfast things about the Eagles was that no matter what, they're going to have great leadership in that locker room of Jason Kelsey and Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox. And these guys, and Hassan Reddick, a veteran player who's had a lot of success individually in this league. Oh, baby, these guys, man, they're going to make sure the ship stays on the right path. But they had this beautiful season. I shouldn't say beautiful, but they were ugly wins. Still wins nonetheless. It was so bad that at 10-1, not just Nick Sirianni, not just the veteran players, veteran player apparently being the source of these quotes, all this, as the season winds down, ruined what could have very well been, even with a late season collapse. Maybe not historical collapse, but you could withstand a little bit of a collapse there at the end of the season and still have gotten the number one seed in the NFL. At least gotten the division in your back pocket. Hosted a playoff game, folks. Didn't happen. It was, how bad was it? We will really never know how bad it was. Dallas Goedert saying, well, after we clinched the playoffs, everyone's just kind of like, all right, we clinched the playoffs, put your feet up. We got 2 more wins left in us, no problem. Turned out to be insanely far from the truth. And it's never going to stop. When I woke up and I was like, all right, let me do my regular old scroll on social media and whatnot. And then I was like, wait, hold the phone. Went on Inquirer.com, saw this story, and I went, huh? I fully expect guys like A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts to be treated a little bit different. I get it. Especially Jalen Hurts, who is now the franchise. I expect it, a little favoritism, but not enough to the point where guys don't understand it. When you lose to the Cardinals, for instance, you just squeak out a win the previous week against the Giants. When all that happens, I guess tempers are a little short. And a player says, yeah, this guy treated different. That guy treated different. Well, how different? It's got to be pretty different for a veteran to think acknowledging it to a reporter is a good idea. They say off the record. So if you don't know the term, even on background, just so you understand what's going on, I'm going to tell you, but you can't use it. But just so you understand, but you can't use it. A lot of stuff on background you can use, but this, I guess, wasn't. I guess it was agreed upon. Don't use it. And then all the stuff that's played out this year, and they say, yeah, by the way, you can use it. Cool. Thanks. Great. AJ goes on WIP. The weekend happens. I assume Marcus reached out to the veteran player. Veteran player said, yeah, you'll go ahead and use it. No problem. Whatever. Oh, my goodness gracious. This world that we live in. This world that we live in. Still looking for answers as to what the hell happened at the end of the season for the Eagles. And I thought today we talk a little bit about the combine, and we will. We'll get into the combine a little bit later. We'll talk to Paul Hudrick too. But that starts this week. And guess what? Speaking of drama, speaking of BS, all the stuff you really love about your Philadelphia Eagles, Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman set to address the media today at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. How much fun is this, folks? The hits just keep on coming. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at. I hope this offseason is just a gift that keeps on giving. Let me tell you. And I don't mean that in a serious light at all. I mean that in a horrifying light. I don't expect anyone to have great attitudes by any means when it comes to the way the season ended for the Eagles. But for people to have horrific experiences in that locker room, apparently, about what was going on behind the scenes. Jalen needs to be more of a leader. AJ needs to be more of a leader. The coaching staff needs to treat them better. The most troubling thing, again, is that the coaching staff, and Nick Sirianni included, we're going to correct these mistakes. Well, how do you do that if everyone's not being held accountable? If people are playing by different rules? How is that possible? And if Nick Sirianni is not the play caller on this offense, and he's the head coach, and he's responsible to be emotionally intelligent and be a leader and all that, how do you let this go awry the way he did? And then also, A.J. Brown said something that at the time I agreed with, and then I read this story, and I went, not so sure about it now with this information. I don't mind if Jalen Hurts isn't the vocal leader. I don't ever want to look at a guy who doesn't consider themselves to be a vocal leader to then force themselves into be a vocal leader. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. I think that's just, you're asking someone to be someone they're not. Like asking Jalen Hurts to be a strict pocket passer. Let's not do that. That seems like a bad idea. I think he can hang in the pocket and throw, but that shouldn't be like every single play that's the goal. No, let him use his legs. Do the thing where you said where you're going to embrace the uniqueness of his game. Let's do that. That seems like a good, fair way to put it. But if this is going to happen in the locker room, then your quarterback team leader is going to have to be able to speak. I don't need him to get on top of a chair. I don't need him to flip over a desk. I don't need him to do anything crazy like that. I need him to have the respect of the locker room. That's what I need him to have. And if a veteran player is willing to speak on what he may or may not be doing as a leader and how he is getting preferential treatment, so much so that it's very noticeable, then no one can take that seriously. Just like during the season when Hassan Reddick said the higher-ups wanted to make the change at defensive coordinator, that essentially neuters your head coach. Well before, hey, what's your role with this team then if the offensive coordinator is in charge of the offense, defensive coordinator in charge of the defense? What does he say you do here, Nick? Well before that, the front office neutered the head coach by making the change. The higher-ups making the change at the defensive coordinator. And if you're a player, and let's just say you love Nick Sirianni, and he got all wonderful things were said about Nick Sirianni on clean out day, whether that be Jalen Hurts, whether it be Jason Kelce, whether it be Fletcher Cox, whoever it might be, whether it be Brandon Graham, whatever. All these wonderful things were said about Nick Sirianni. If all that's true, then how does this happen? How does the story come out right now about preferential treatment for players playing favorites with these guys? If you're going to neuter your head coach by doing that, by making the defensive coordinator change, and then kind of undercutting him in front of his locker room, well, then how do you respect the head coach? If the quarterback is getting preferential treatment, doesn't have to work as hard as you, when all the reports are, oh, no, Jalen Hurts works really hard. Well, then how do you have respect for that guy? How do you follow his lead? A.J. Brown, let's not forget, before he addressed the media after that ice out, silent, quiet time, I don't know what you would call it, he addressed the team first. He apologized for being a distraction. One of the things the veteran says in this story is, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know if that was a distraction. I don't think players care if another player talks to the media or not. If they get questioned on it, they're like, yeah, that's all right. Talk to AJ. That's all. It's not a big distraction. That's an easy answer. So if this is supposed to be Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown being these great leaders, how are they going to be respected around the rest of the locker room? And AJ Brown, again, before he addressed the media, he addressed the team. And the team still sucked after that. So what? Apparently it fell on deaf ears. Maybe the reason it did is because they didn't feel like they were being treated as they were. Those two guys weren't being treated as the rest of the team. I did not imagine this much BS to come out of what was a horrible ending to the Eagles season. But yet here we are. I look forward to hearing what Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman have to say as the day does go on. Good time. I do love the question. I have it up in my notes here. That's what I'm looking at. I do love the question. Hey, so what about Brown's on-field conniptions and his 2-week media blackout? Were they affecting the team? An accomplished veteran replied, I don't know about that. But I'd say it doesn't help when you treat guys two different ways. Wonderful. We're all having fun. Before we get to Paul, let me I'm going to real quick. We'll do the official chat check at the end of the show. Excuse me. We'll do the chat check at the end of the show, but I just want to peruse. Okay, this is what I thought. Emirates was going. Hayes has some of the worst takes in the business, though. This isn't a take. This is a report. That's the thing, though. Because I thought the same thing. I was like, okay, what's going on here? And then I start reading the article, and it's not attributed to any sources right out of the gate in the first couple of paragraphs. I was like, oh, there hasn't been a locker room session. There hasn't been media availability. This has to be something from the season, maybe? And then you go on to read, and over the weekend, the player that originally said off the record said, go ahead and use it. Let's throw more gasoline on the fire. What the hell? I love that attitude. It's not Marcus Hayes saying, hey, I think that players were treated different. No. It's this player on this team told me this. Veterans, as a matter of fact. Tyvita, haven't seen you in a minute. Nice to see you. What's going on? How are you? Can't stand Marcus. All right. Marcus gets so much crap, man. But I know Marcus. Marcus is people just think Marcus isn't afraid to write the stuff that other writers will be like, I don't want that heat. Marcus is like, the hell with it. This is our job. This is what a player told me I'm going. This is what happened. What else? All right, I'll get to everybody else in here. Eric was just we're going to hear about Nick talk about seeds and growing them. We got daisies over here. We're talking about tulips. Oh, wait a minute. Hey, suffering succotash. This is a refreshing take. This type of BS is continuing because players don't think the problems in the organization have been resolved. That's a good take. It's an airing of grievances. It's an airing of grievances is what it is. I love it. Wait, hold on a second. Doesn't Farzi sound like what's his name from that old cartoon, The Critic, one of my favorite shows? I will say I am heavily influenced by John Lovitz. I'm heavily influenced. Yeah. I actually interviewed John Lovitz once, and it was probably the worst interview John Lovitz ever did. And I blame myself. It was when I was at the Fanatic, and he came in studio, and I was really excited. And I was expecting John Lovitz. I was expecting, do you like my car? I leased it. Jealous? I was expecting that. I didn't get that. I didn't know what to do with it. I blame myself. I take full responsibility. I had to do a better job putting my questions in a better way to have John Lovitz be more entertaining. But anyway, love John Lovitz. A lot of John Lovitz influence, a lot of Norm influence. I'm not saying I'm not putting I'm not comparing myself. I'm just saying people that are often living rent-free in my head. David Letterman, insanely. Anyway, all right. Lovitz, that's who it was. There you go. Anyway, all right. We're going to get to the rest of your comments, but we're also going to get to Paul Hudrick. Breaking it all down from Liberty Ballers. First time in a while. Paul's been on the show, but I wanted to make sure we got an update on what's going on with Joel Embiid the expectation the Sixers have with Joel Embiid. Sixers, by the way, last night, they went into it. So at the time of this interview, the Sixers were a half game up on the Indiana Pacers, who took a loss last night. So the Sixers are now a full game up on the Miami Heat. Sixers are in the 5th seed right now in the Eastern Conference. The Heat are in the 6th seed. Pacers are 13 games out, as are the Miami Heat. And the Orlando Magic are 13 and a half. And then there's the drop off to the Bulls that are 18 games back. The Boston Celtics, who are 45 and 12. And the Sixers play tonight. Good times. We're all having fun. All right. Without further ado, stick with me here for a second. I was loading up this interview when I saw the story regarding the Eagles. So I have to find it. There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a minute. We got it. So here it is. Paul Hudrick, Liberty Ballers, joining us here on the Rothman Orthopedics Guest. A minute since we caught up with our good friend, the man of 1,000 looks, Mr. Paul Hudrick, joins us from Liberty Ballers. What's up, Paulie? Long time no see.
I was two things. One, I was starting to think you just didn't love me anymore. And two, I saw on my phone, I'm like, Mark Farzetta, what? So no, but I'm very glad that you have me on, my friend. I'm very happy to be here talking Sixers with you.
I in all honesty, I was walking around Costco with the missus, as one does as an adult. And I was just like, I gotta talk. I haven't talked Sixers with Paulie in forever. I gotta hit up Paul. Gotta see how Paul's doing. What's going on, Paul? And I text you right in the bath section of Costco. And I'm like, can you do it? And you got back to me like, yeah, man, let's go. I was starting to think you didn't like me anymore. I was like, oh, not my Paulie. I have to have Paulie on. Of course. No, we didn't have as many guests as we were when we started the show. Kind of cut back on that. Plus the Eagles, as you well know, as a writer of sports, they kind of take over headlines from time to time. And now the Sixers, they got some things happening here, man. And I just had to A, catch up with you, and B, talk a little bit about these 10-9-8 76ers. First and foremost, let's just start with the big story here, okay? The Joel Embiid case. We got a couple more weeks before we figure out what's going on here. Let me ask you that first. Where are we in the Joel Embiid get healthy as soon as possible saga?
So I think it's pretty much the same as we've heard before. I think publicly the Sixers are kind of putting out this, we are hopeful, but we don't want to say, because, and I get it, if you're them, you don't want to say, oh, well, we think he'll be back this time, because then if it's a week past that, everyone will lose their mind, right? So I think, or if they say this time, then he comes back sooner, everyone will be like, whoa, why are you rushing him back? So it does them there's a real benefit to them saying, yes, we believe he will be back in X amount of weeks. Now, the initial report was he'll be reevaluated in 4 weeks. I think anyone who thinks he's going to be back in 4 weeks, like I think you would have to definitely, tamp down your expectations there. I very strongly doubt that. Like 6 to 8 weeks is kind of like that generic number you kind of hear out there. And I don't think like 6 weeks seems feasible. I think the Sixers, like they believe he will be back. For how many games, how he'll look, how he'll be, how he'll kind of coalesce with all these new pieces that are here. That is going to be the bigger questions as we go forward. But I think they're pretty confident that he will be back. And he'll get a couple games, he'll get a few games. I don't know how many that is. But even if it's, even if he can't come back till late March, he still could get 5 to 10 games ish, maybe, if you're being kind of optimistic. So yeah, I think that's where we are right now. I think, as far as we know, everything with the surgery went well. He's been around the team. He's putting out the vibes like he plans to be back. And the Sixers are putting out vibes like they plan him to be back. I would say this too, Mark, like you probably don't give up 3 second-round picks for Buddy Hield. And 37-year-old Kyle Lowry probably doesn't come here if he thinks that Joel Embiid is not going to be back for a potential playoff run. So I think all the signs are definitely pointing toward at some point he is going to come back.
Okay, all right. So you and I are on the same page, because I said at the deadline they're not making these moves to lose now. They're making these moves to win now. They're not doing anything to add to this team unless they have some semblance of hope. Far from a guarantee, but some semblance of hope that Joel Embiid will be back playing games. Now, are you and I on the same page when it comes to this? That he almost has to play before the playoffs start. Let's assume that you're not going to make the injury worse. You're not going to hurt his chances of being healthy. It's just a matter of playing in shape and getting himself into shape. In that case, does he have to play a couple of regular season games at the end of the year to be ready for the postseason, to play himself back into shape?
So simple answer, yes. He absolutely needs to play I would say for me, at least like a handful of games in order for me to feel good about the conditioning aspect of it. And the rhythm aspect of it is a pretty big deal too, because the reality is, and I know we're going to get into it, but look where they are in the standings. Look who they might have to play in the first round. It's not going to be the Brooklyn Nets like last year. Like, you're going to have to play the Knicks or the Bucks or the Cavaliers. Like, you're going to have to play a tough team. So they need him. They need him to get back into shape. They need him to get a rhythm. But I would say, Mark, that the other thing that's like a huge part of this equation, and maybe I don't want to say maybe my bigger concern, but I think just as big, is like, he hasn't played with Buddy Hield. He hasn't played with Kyle Lowry. How is all of that going to work? Because the reality is, a guy like Joel Embiid, the highest, has a historical usage rate this year. Looked like a world destroyer, like unbelievable. But when you just throw a guy like that back into the mix, Kyle Lowry's very smart, veteran player. He'll figure it out. Like, I'm sure he will, but he still needs to figure it out. Buddy Hield seems like such a great fit for him as a shooter, does so many things to space the floor, will absolutely be an asset for Joel Embiid. But again, they all need to figure out how it works. And then lineup combinations, right? Because like, who's playing with who and how does that work? And how do we play now off of Joel? Because they have to play too, Mark. Like, the other thing, they haven't done it yet because they just haven't been very good for the first 3 games coming out of the All-Star break. But like, they have to play a different style entirely without him. Like, they have to play fast because they don't have as much high-end talent and because they're not as big. Like, their best lineup is a smaller lineup right now. All of a sudden, they have this glut of guards, whereas before they've always been such a big team. So just all of these moving parts, I think. So yes, like, you need, like, to me, at least a handful of games for the health, for the rhythm, but then also just to get used to these new teammates that he's never played with.
Oh boy, now I'm already hearing it where somehow magically the Sixers win the first. I almost did it there. The Eagles somehow magically the Sixers win a first round playoff series with Joel Embiid back. They lose again in the second round, and then we hear, well, these guys haven't played together. These guys haven't played together, and it sounds a lot like the Brett Brown quadruple doink year of they had to learn to play with Jimmy Butler, and then they had to learn to play with Tobias Harris, and then they had to figure that out in the playoffs, and then quadruple doinked out of the playoffs, unfortunately. But I do agree, and it makes sense, but I think a lot of people are understanding that that's probably the way this is headed anyway, where these guys just don't have that experience with one another. So to look further down the line then, you've already stated, when you look at Joel Embiid, he seems like a guy that the Sixers are very optimistic that – we're not very optimistic, but the Sixers are thinking more along the lines of, oh, he can play towards the end of this year, at least a little bit, and then play in the playoffs, obviously. When it comes to beyond that, I don't want to get into predictions as to where this team could go because a lot's going to fall into place that. But Buddy Hield, is he brought here to kind of be given this Philadelphia tour in hopes of he re-signs here in Philadelphia, stays here in Philadelphia, and I guess takes the place of a Tobias Harris in that starting lineup?
It's possible. I think the one thing I like people, and I get the whole cap space plan, and it kind of freaks people out because there's a lot of uncertainty with that. And I don't think, like, if you're Daryl Morey, I don't think Daryl Morey's going into that cap space plan saying like, okay, we need to get Paul George from the Clippers or this plan sucks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's thinking of it like that. I think, look, if Paul George doesn't wind up signing an extension with the Clippers and he hits free agency, of course, Daryl Morey is going to make a call. He's going to make a full court press to try to get a guy like Paul George into Philadelphia. Absolutely. But that's not to say that if you can't get Paul George, or if LeBron James doesn't decide to opt out and, whatever, join a new team, which seems pretty unlikely. But just because you can't do those things doesn't mean that the cap space is now useless. You can still use it. One of the things you mentioned, with Buddy Hield, it is interesting because they will have his rights, and that will make it easier to re-sign him. From what I heard, it sounds like the Pacers kind of lowballed him a little bit with an extension offer, so that's why it didn't work out there, and why the Pacers were so willing to move on from him and get a second-round pick, knowing they weren't going to be able to sign him long-term. So yeah, I do think you can look at it a little bit like a test drive. If it goes well and Buddy Hield looks like this great seamless fit with Joel Embiid, yeah, of course you got to consider, okay, maybe we need to pay this guy. Maybe we need to look at it beyond that. And even if they do, Mark, like they would still have money and assets and things to spend to make this team better. So yeah, I mean, look, Buddy Hield has he is the one thing that you need. Like you need shooting around Joel Embiid. When you look at guys like JJ Redick and Seth Curry, how good they were playing off of Joel. And I would say Buddy has a lot more offensive juice than those guys. Like he can put the ball on the floor. He can make plays for others. He struggled a little bit coming out of the All-Star break, but we saw the games before the All-Star break. Like he's more than just a shooter. He's a scorer. He can make things happen. So to have a guy like that, like a JJ Redick or like a Seth Curry, but that also has a little bit more to offer, that feels like an ideal guy to play with Joel Embiid. Now, there's a lot of other moving parts. Do you re-sign D'Anthony Melton? Do you are you bringing back some of the other guys? Like there's just a lot of uncertainty. So I say that I agree. I think it's a fair point that they might do that. But I think Daryl Morey, like his main thing is let's keep this cap space. Let's have these trade assets, and then we're prepared for whatever is out there, whether it's a guy shaking loose or whatever happens. We have the ability to maneuver in a bunch of different directions.
Before the season, I wrote a checklist of things I wanted to see from the Sixers. The number one thing, hey, move on from James Harden. That was checked. That box was checked in the very early goings. Love to see that. Tyrese Maxey be an all-star. Love to see that he was on that trajectory, and now he's an all-star. Joel Embiid, stay healthy. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened, but, them's the breaks. As far as Maxey goes as an all-star, though, we know the accolades now. What have you seen from Tyrese Maxey this year, even with Embiid and without Embiid, that has shown you how much he has really improved from even just last year?
Well, you can see like the biggest thing I think offensively is the change of speeds. Like, we all know he is arguably the fastest player in the entire NBA with the basketball in his hands, but the ability to go from 100 to 75, then slam the brakes or whatever, like the ability to do that, it's a big deal. And there was a specific play against Milwaukee yesterday where he kind of got the ball in transition. I think it was actually against Pat Bev, and he was just flying up the floor, and Pat Bev was running as fast as he could with him, and he just slammed the brakes, rose up, and Pat Bev was so off balance he couldn't challenge the shot. Maxey winds up getting a little like 2-foot like little jumper. So I think like plays like that, the finishing in general, I mean, he is just it's and for a guy who, say whatever, like he really doesn't get calls. Like he does not get a favorable whistle when you watch him play. He gets beat up pretty good when he goes into the paint. So with that he's still such a good finisher, that says a lot. And it says a lot that he can still do it without Joel Embiid against a team like the Milwaukee Bucks that protects the rim so well with a guy like Brook Lopez. And then you have, Giannis Antetokounmpo as a roamer who's coming off the ball. Like to have all that and still be able to finish and still do his thing, it's really impressive. The shooting's still there. The playmaking it is better. It's not great. I don't know that he's ever going to be, like a true point guard. But that's fine. I don't think they need him to be.
Okay. don't know what the heck happened there. Let's try one more time. No? What the hell? All right, let's try something else here, folks. I don't know why this is just freezing up on me. We'll try to get rid of Paulie there. And that's not the right button either. Okay, he's back. Sorry, guys. We'll get this up and running, I promise you. Paul's got some good stuff. Of course. Paul's got some good stuff. Let's see if this will work. Ladies and gentlemen, move on from James Harden. That was checked. That box was checked in the very... Love to see that. Tyrese Maxey be an all-star. Love to see that he was on that trajectory, and now he's an all-star. Joel Embiid, stay healthy. Unfortunately, hasn't happened, but, you know, them's the breaks. As far as Maxey goes as an all-star, though, we know the accolades now. What have you seen from Tyrese Maxey this year, even with Embiid and without Embiid, that has shown you how much he has really improved from even just last year?
Well, you can see like the biggest thing I think offensively is the change of speeds. Like, you know, we all know he is arguably the fastest player in the entire NBA with the basketball in his hands, but the ability to go from 100 to 75, then slam the brakes or whatever, like the ability to do that, it's a big deal. And there was a specific play against Milwaukee yesterday where he kind of got the ball in transition. I think it was actually against Pat Bev. And he was just flying up the floor, and Pat Bev was running as fast as he could with him, and he just slammed the brakes, rose up, and Pat Bev was so off balance he couldn't challenge the shot. Maxey winds up getting a little like 2-foot like little jumper. So I think like plays like that, the finishing in general. I mean, he is just and for a guy who, you know, say whatever, like he really doesn't get calls. Like he does not get a favorable whistle when you watch him play. He gets beat up pretty good when he goes into the paint. So with that he's still such a good finisher, that says a lot. And it says a lot that he can still do it without Joel Embiid against a team like the Milwaukee Bucks that protects the rim so well with a guy like Brook Lopez. And then you have, you know, Giannis Antetokounmpo as a roamer who's coming off the ball. Like to have all that and still be able to finish and still do his thing. It's really impressive. You know, the shooting's still there. The playmaking it is better. It's not great. I don't know that he's ever going to be, you know, like a true point guard. But that's fine. I don't think they need him to be. I think with Joel Embiid and him, I think there's enough playmaking there. If you can maybe get, again, if Buddy Hield can get back to those playmaking chops you kind of saw before the All-Star break, not a bad little mix of those three guys. You bring in a guy like Lowry off the bench. I really like the chemistry with him and Maxey so far, with, you know, giving Maxey some ability to play off the ball. But I would say too, Mark, like the one thing that's been really noticeable is the leadership aspect of things. I think he gets, like, he's one of those athletes that just, man, he just gets it. Like he just understands, like, okay, I'm an all-star. I'm going to get a max contract because we all know he's going to get a max contract. It's not a secret. And so he knows, and he even said it before the All-Star game, like, Joel Embiid's not going to be there. I am representing the Philadelphia 76ers when I go to Indiana and I go to the All-Star game. Like he took it very seriously. And I think that speaks to the kind of guy he is. I know after the trade deadline, campaign said the first guy that texted him was Tyrese Maxey. So, I mean, he has taken on this leadership role. And I kind of, it's campaign.
Sorry. Yeah. I just lost the translation. Sorry.
Yes. Sorry. So yeah, Tyrese Maxey text campaign and said, like, welcome to the Sixers. Like, let's get to work, all that kind of fun stuff. But I think that the contrast of personalities between him and Joel Embiid like works, because Joel is he's quiet. He keeps to himself. He's just not a very, like, it's funny to say it because of his kind of like Twitter persona, but like, he's not a very outgoing person. It's just not really his way. Whereas Tyrese Maxey is like, you know, he could be the mayor of Philadelphia tomorrow if he wanted to be. Like, he just has that charisma, that charm. Like, he just has that. So I think those two, I think he brings out the best in Joel Embiid in that case. But then I also think it takes some pressure off Joel Embiid because he doesn't have to be something he's not, because Tyrese can kind of fill in that. So I think that leadership aspect, of course, on the court, how good he's been in that aspect is the most important thing. But that leadership part, I think, has really grown as well.
All right. I have to ask this, and it's a little drama because whenever we talk about one player hating another player, and I have a theory. All right. Now you can just tell me if I'm right or wrong in this little theory I have here. I have a theory that Kelly Oubre hates Buddy Hield because time and time again, Paul Hudrick, Liberty Ballers, I see Kelly Oubre at the wing, dribble drive, penetration, and then Buddy Hield, rightfully so, rotates top of the key, wide open for a kick out, and it's Buddy Hield. He can throw the ball. And Kelly Oubre, in a vacuum, every time, just goes up for a little 2-foot bunny that more often than not, clank, off the rim and misses it. When Buddy Hield is wide open, the top of the key. So, can you confirm or deny whether or not Kelly Oubre hates Buddy Hield?
Deny, because I don't think it's personal. I think Kelly Oubre is not the biggest fan of passing the basketball to anyone. No, look, and Kelly's done a good job this year. Like, he really has.
He has. This is one thing I'm nitpicking.
No, for sure. And look, that's never been his strength. Like, he's never been a high assist guy. He's never been the most efficient player. And it's who he is. And like, you have to accept that. And I think lately he's kind of thrust into this like bigger role that like he shouldn't be in. I mean, frankly, it's just the way like right now you have Tyrese Maxey doing his thing, Tobias Harris struggling mightily. So who, even Buddy Hield again out of the break has not been great. So someone's got to create offense and someone's got to make something happen. So I think, yeah, like a little bit in Kelly Oubre's head, it's probably like, all right, it's Kelly Oubre time because we don't have anyone else to do it. So if I don't, no one else will. So yeah, I do not think it is personal against Buddy. I think it is just this is who Kelly Oubre is as a player, and sometimes it works and sometimes it does not.
Fair enough. All right, fine. Agree to disagree. No, just kidding. All right. So last one here is Tobias Harris, and I just feel like we're in the final days of Tobias Harris. I mean, look, there's a lot of days left here in the season, and obviously the playoffs and all that. But there's no way he's back next year, Tobias Harris, is there?
I would be really surprised if he is. I think everything seems very lined up for him to be a Detroit Piston next year. They have money to spend. They're not going to be able to lure there's not that many top guys anyway. And even if there were, they're not going to Detroit. With all due respect to the lovely city of Detroit, they're not going there. So a guy like Tobias is perfect for them. He can mentor the young guys. Seriously though, he can mentor the young guys. There's not a lot of pressure on him in a city like that. Like think about it. A team like Detroit, their goal is to make the playoffs, right? Like that's their goal is to not suck. In that regard, like Tobias Harris is perfect. Like he'll go there, he'll average like 20 or so a game. He'll help like guys like Cade Cunningham and Roy and Jaden Ivey. He'll kind of nurture them and help them kind of learn how to be pros. And Jalen Duren, they have a lot of really good young players, so he can kind of help usher in that new era. He'll probably get like some kind of balloon contract where it'll be like a couple years at like a high number. We'll all be like, oh my God, Tobias Harris signed for that much money again. But yeah, it just seems like the writing's on the wall for that. And yeah, like I'm not surprised that he didn't get traded at the deadline, but I think the Sixers should have at least explored it. And from all accounts, I don't think they did. I think in their they had interest in Bojan Bogdanovic, who scorched them the other night with the Knicks, but the Pistons wanted Tobias, and so that was the deal. And if I'm being honest with you, I might have done Tobias Harris or Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks. I might have considered that. It's not even like. And I get it. Like, I think there's like some kind of middle ground here for Tobias Harris, or he's probably not as bad as the people who hate him, and not as good as the people that love him. Like he's somewhere in the middle there. And like, I just think it's here. He just doesn't fit here. And I don't get the sense he's like super happy here. I don't know that for a fact. I'm not like super close to him or anything, but like, I think his role, certainly he's not happy. He keeps kind of getting pushed down in the pecking order, and not to say it's not justified, but it's the reality. And I think, again, Detroit Pistons, it just makes so much sense. All those dots seem to connect pretty well.
Yeah. Of all the teams he's played for, and it's not like he's a 40-year-old veteran or anything. He's a veteran. All the teams he's played for, I don't think he's ever had a repeat. I think the Pistons would be the first time he ever played twice or had 2 separate stints with a team. I guess.
Correct. Yeah, Orlando, Milwaukee,
God,
yeah, L.A.,
insane,
Detroit,
insane,
and then
insane.
Mark, he played all. He's going to play every minute of the contract that he signed, which is mind-boggling to me. I can't believe that.
Absolutely amazing.
If you had told me that 3 years ago, I would have said you're nuts. There's no way he doesn't get moved, at least as an expiring contract. But it didn't happen.
The other guys became the priority. Moving Ben Simmons, then moving James Harden. And
That's a part of
it. Whatever. Paul Hudrick, great talking to you, man. Great catching up with you. I know we'll talk to you again down the line. If you had to say right now, just so I can interrogate you further, just the absolute last thing, yes or no, the Sixers are going to be a play-in tournament team.
There is a good chance they.
No, yes or no. Yes or no.
I can't give you a yes or no.
You scallywag. Paul Hudrick, Liberty Ballers. Check out all things he does there at Liberty Ballers there. Paul, great catching up, my friend. Thanks so much.
Anytime, Mark. You got it, pal.
He's the best. Absolutely love Paul Hudrick, man. Appreciate it anytime he can come on. And yeah, it had been certainly a long time since we had him on. I think June is when we had him on. I don't know what happened there. While I was recording that interview last night, we had a little bit of a glitch that I thought was fine. I went through the interview earlier today to just trim, and apparently whatever I trimmed and loaded in the old drive there wasn't working. I had it on a floppy disk is what happened. I had it on a floppy disk, and I guess that's just outdated technology. I don't know. Anyway, welcome back. Here's what we got. We got the Game Time app, ladies and gentlemen. Download the Game Time app to your phone. Have yourself a good time. Go to the game, go to the concert, go to the event with the Game Time app. Guaranteed lowest price. That's a Game Time guarantee, where if you find tickets to the event you bought tickets for, if you find tickets on another site in the same section, same row, for less money, the Game Time app will get you back at 110% of the difference. How about that, ladies and gentlemen? Check out the Game Time app. Download it to your phone and use promo code Farzy when you create an account, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase of the Game Time app. So download the app to your phone, the Game Time app. Use promo code Farzy and get $20 off your first purchase when you use promo code Farzy. We're gonna get to the chat check in a second, but I do want to get one more thing in here. One more thing from this Marcus Hayes article. And by the way, I agree with everything Paul said. From Joel Embiid coming back, you guys, if you watch the show, you listen to the show, you know that the trade deadline deals, my take on it was, Joel Embiid's coming back. Like, Joel Embiid's going to play this year. Maybe even with some games left in the season. He's got to, right? Don't rush it. But maybe. So crossing my fingers for that. One more thing from the Marcus Hayes article, and I want to make sure I get this quote right. So Marcus Hayes continues in the story. And this is one thing. Like I said, I saw this right before the show, so I didn't get a chance to digest every second of it. But one of the quotes here in the story, according to the veterans with whom I spoke for this column, neither Brown nor Hurts was reprimanded for improvising at the end of the Seattle game. Remember, at the end of the Seattle game, interception to A.J. Brown, last offensive play there by the Eagles. And Nick Sirianni said, that was their idea. That was his idea. That was what we do. Is what we wanted to do, take a shot and all that. He was covering, as A.J. Brown highlighted later during that media session where he broke his media ban, whatever. He said that they were improvising on that play. That was not Nick Sirianni. Nick took that bullet for us. He shouldn't have. That was on us. But Nick is a good coach, and he rides with Nick and all that stuff. But apparently that happens more often than we know. According to this source, Sirianni not only defended their initiative to attempt that throw downfield, he also painted a picture in which Hurts and Brown apparently are allowed to call. The source painted the picture where Brown and Hurts are allowed to call their own shots as much as they like. He has total freedom to do what he wants and do what he needs to make a play, Sirianni said. That was at his press conference. But according to the source, the feeling is Hurts and Brown are allowed to call their own shots as much as they like. What? What happened to the coaching? See, look, I'm not mad at A.J. Brown or Jalen Hurts. Like, one of the things the article also goes on to talk about the indictments. Who's this an indictment of? Sean Desai, Nick Sirianni, Brian Johnson. You're the coaches, you're the coordinators. You got to run a little bit of a tight ship here. Not just with I don't know, younger guys, but everybody. And look, anybody who thinks in any world, the seasoned veteran is going to get treated exactly like the incoming undrafted rookie. Okay, come on, let's get serious here. They're going to be treated different. It's like certain things in the CBA literally dictate, hey, you got to be different here. You know what I mean? So I get that part of it. But to the point where it's noticeably different, and the fact that this is coming from the source is at least credited as a veteran, not just some rookie who's shooting off. You know what I mean? So that to me is far more indicting of anything else. And what the scariest thing about it is this isn't a formula for success. If you continually have mistakes, if Nick Sirianni is being real, which is hard to tell sometimes in a press conference, well, and I was being real, because a lot of stuff that he says that doesn't pass the smell test, so to speak. But if he is being real and saying, oh, yeah, they have total control, or not total control, but they have freedom to make a play. Okay, well, what about the situational football that you've talked about? Because Nick Sirianni has talked about situational football. The end of the game against the Seahawks where they throw that ball up to A.J. Brown and it's intercepted. That's awful. That's not situational football. But the worst part about it is the interception to Quez Watkins, which I think is the play that I've referenced most in the 3 years I've been doing this show. Awful. Absolutely horrendously ugly awful. How the hell do you take that throw down the field when you're leading in the fourth quarter with 8 minutes and 15 seconds left? I'm not saying you don't throw the ball at all. I'm not saying you go total conservative, but that is such an unnecessary throw, especially if you have someone open in the flat. On both interceptions, somebody was open. Kenny Gainwell, both times at the line of scrimmage. And I'm not trying to, no, Kenny Gainwell needs more touches. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying less interceptions. Whatever it takes. If it takes Kenny Gainwell open at the line of scrimmage, give it to Kenny Gainwell open at the line of scrimmage. According to this veteran, they can call as many shots as they want. First Commanders game, taking the shot downfield. Week 4 to A.J. Brown. Didn't need to do it. Less time was on the clock. Yes, A.J. Brown got the taunting penalty. Yes, that's not good. Didn't hate it at the time. I was like, okay, there's a dagger. There's a dagger. Was not a dagger. When they went to overtime. Damn it, man. Let's get into the chat check now and see how you beautiful people are doing in total. Sean Kilrain, what's going on? Sean Gillespie, what's going on? Tyvita, hello again. Nice to have you back. Tyvita, are you joining us because you saw Paul Hudrick in the headline? We were talking some Sixers. Is that what was going down? Reyes, we got to you. What's going on? M. Reyes, Hayes. It's not a take. It's a report. Tyvita saying hi to Sean. Eagles fan can't stay Marcus Hayes. I love Marcus Hayes. Tyvita, exactly. I don't think that was on me. I think that was on Marcus Hayes. Scoozy. It's Scoozy. Charles Menifee, what's going on, Charles? Many teams do this, to be honest. But to the point a veteran is pointing it out is a terrible look. I agree. I'm more convinced that Sirianni should have been flushed. Yeah. Yeah. Little bit. Sirianni's lackluster leadership on full display yet again, says Sean Gillespie. Jason A., what's going on? Good morning to everybody. Good morning, my friends. Good morning. Whoever Hayes got his info from, that player knows they're not coming back to the Eagles. Process of elimination. Maybe they are coming back. Some players are more equal than others. Jason A., ready to watch the Sixers get blown out tonight? No, I'm not ready for that. No locker room leadership either. Certainly doesn't seem like it. Eagles fan. Oh, and Farzy, someone better tell Sills to stop with the name calling and assassinating characters, or he's going to get snubbed. And you got a problem with Sills, you got to take it up with Sills. Front office, suffering succotash. The front office is micromanaging, intrusive clown show. And the head coach is a raging, babbling moron. Good luck getting free agents into town. Who would want to come to Philly? At this point, it's a little scary. I used to think it was great. Now it's scary. April, good morning. April, good morning. Slay on Twitter. Oh, really? I didn't see that. I didn't see that. Did he really? That's not good for anybody. Did they call it? Wait, hold on. All right. I was the one that tagged Slay on Twitter the second Sills called him a bitch. Oh, geez. That's why I took back what he said. Well, good fan work out of you. Good fan work out of you. Yeesh, that headline is rough. Yeah, it's not fun. Drama never stops with the Eagles. Now I'm reading it. I'm like, do I have a typo? Good morning to Vita Sean Kilrain. What's going on? Stephen Ike. I agree. Good for you. It's just football. No vocal leader. Sean Kilrain. 100% there's no vocal leader to control the locker room. We need another Doc. Thought it would be Reddick, but that didn't happen. I think they need another Malcolm Jenkins is who they need. Are we going to hear Nick talk about seeds and growing them? That's from the press conference today at the thing. At the combine. Should suffer and succotash. It's worth repeating. This type of BS is continuing because players don't think the problems in the organization have been resolved. They continue. Mia Sanchez, good morning, all. Feels like tabloid news. It certainly does. Fujadamas. What's up, Fuji? John Lovitz. How do you not love John Lovitz? No relation. Sills is, I believe, 100% Sicilian. I am half Calabrese. So they're right next to each other in Italy. If you don't know, mostly Italian-Polish. Mostly Italian-Polish over here. Although genetically, if we're really getting into it, Lithuanian. But Polishness was the celebrated culture of my grandmother. So that is Jak się masz? Come stai? Pierogies and raviolis. Mike, there's the button. Mike, I kind of agree with you. That happens losing season for sure. No leadership. Yeah, I agree. Far as in, look, did I hit that already? Distant cousin. You're saying we look identical? I don't think we look identical. Far as you get your show link up and get your show link up in advance. Had to come back 6 times checking to see if sorry, buddy. Sorry, Adam. Charles Murphy Level Classic Comics. Those are Letterman, Lovitz, Norm Macdonald. Those are just some people. Steve Martin is in my head a lot. Yeah. Wait, what? Jason, I got a weird feeling the Sixers might win in some weird fluke tonight. Okay. Is that fluke everyone in Boston sits? Transistor's dead. Look, I heard this take a lot. At this point, I refuse to believe any story quoting anonymous sources. If you can't put your name behind what you are saying, I don't trust you, period. I get that, but the other side of it is retribution. If you're airing company secrets, nobody likes that. If you're the Eagles, or you're an Eagles player, and Marcus Hayes in his story writes it was after the Cardinals game, then you're going to think, all right, who was Marcus talking to? Who was at his locker talking to Marcus? Who was in a position to nod in the direction of Jalen Hurts? Like you're trying to Zapruder it. You know what I mean? Kids today understand Zapruder? I think they understand Zapruder. If breaking it down is basically what it means, but it's based off the guy that got the footage of JFK being assassinated. You there with me? No? Okay. Dr. Philly, great name. Here's the deal with being treated differently. That's the coach's fault. 1,000 billion gazillion % agree. I'm sure Jalen never asked to be or wanted to be treated differently. I concur. 1,000% on the coaches. The Eagles have a lot of problems. One is that there are way too many loose lips. Loose lips sink ships. Sean Killoran, Scallywag from the Chappelle Show. Scallywag is just a great. I first remember Letterman. For whatever reason, I have Letterman in my head saying Scallywag. But it is a great show. It is a great name. It has a great show. And you call somebody a scallywag, they know it's in good. Like, I've never been cut off in traffic and be like, oh, scallywag. Maybe I should bring it back, though. Whoa. No. Transition 10. What are you saying? No, not according to this veteran, Farzi. Respectfully, it's according to what Marcus Hayes is attributing to this veteran, and nobody can verify it. But it's a report, though. Therefore, the article is worthless. It's not an opinion. He quotes. Here's the difference. Okay, so this is the setting, and then this is literally the quote. Let me get your thing down here. Yeah, I guess some guys can't do anything wrong. That's a quote. You go through the story. Do I still have it up here? I still have it up here. Yeah, it's up here. Yeah, he's quoting sources in the story. Where's the other thing? And the thing that's funny is that he says, what about Brown? Yeah, I guess some guys can't do anything wrong. When he's asked about the conniptions that A.J. Brown has, he says, I don't know about that, but I will say it doesn't help when they treat guys two different ways. That's a quote. That's what makes it a story. If it's just, I feel this way, then I'm not talking about it. If it's Marcus Hayes saying, I think this, or I think that, or I feel, or what my contention is, I don't think that's not a story. But when you're attributing it to sources in the locker room, crediting them, that makes the story. Unfortunately. People aren't going to put their People aren't going to put their name on it. Retaliation is a real thing. I agree. How up front the Phillies and Flyers are such a blessing because the Sixers and now the Eagles make you feel filthy. Can't stand corrupt, controlling power struggles. I concur. Ooh, April Schmuck. Schmuck is a solid one. That is a solid one. Thanks, everybody in the chat. You guys are wonderful, as per usual. Oh, no transitions. No disrespect taken at all. We're cool. I mean, no disrespect to you, Farzi. I'm just tired of this anonymous BS. It's cowardly as hell. I agree. But unless it's like Jalen Hurts saying it, that's like the only, or Jason Kelce even on his way out. If Jason Kelce does an interview, and he would never do this, or he's like, this guy sucked, that guy sucked, this guy is treated differently, blah, 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 then I'm like, oh, damn, that's happening. But he's also would most likely at that point on his way out. But again, I'll go back to I'm going to credit my source, Suffering Succotash. And has a great point. The reason this is all still coming out is because players feel like the problems aren't solved. If this was addressed and solved during the season, the Eagles aren't having the historic collapse they had. They still probably collapse a little bit because even at 10-1, I think we all know that they weren't that good. But at least they win the division if you resolve these problems. Yeah. Crazy, man. Crazy. All right. Let's get to the morning rush. Brought to you by Sky Motor Cars, SkyMotorCars.com. Your 10-9-8 76ers, 33-24 on the season. Having lost 7 of their last 10, are taking on the Boston Celtics, who only have the best record in the NBA. 45-12 on the year. They have won 8 games in a row. They have won 9 of their last 10. They take on the Sixers tonight. Good times. Good times. That is, I believe it's a 7:30 tip-off time. 7:30 tip-off. TNT has the game. That is in South Philadelphia. So you guys can check it out then. Like I said, you got the Combine with Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman talking today. So more drama, I'm sure, to unpack for tomorrow's program. So I look forward to that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You guys are wonderful, as per usual. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow. My thanks to Paul Hudrick for joining the show today. Make sure you guys read all things Paul Hudrick on Liberty Ballers. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. See you tomorrow. Bye.